Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. I'm your host Q, coming to you once again from my mother's basement, and I'm joined by my co-host P. How goes it, P?
As always, it goes fantastically. My chickens are doing well. They're hanging out, pecking at each other as chickens do, and they're buying Bitcoin. They're loving it.
Did
How
the
about
feds did the feds stop your cockfighting ring last night?
Hey, I have never, ever done that. That'd be fucked up. These chickens are supported entirely on Bitcoin. They buy their own Bitcoin. They make their own Bitcoin purchases, and they don't need to fight each other. Plus, they're all hens. So, but Chris, our colleague, our co-host, how are you doing?
Sorry, I had to unmute there. I didn't want to pull a UP. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Fuck you.
We got a jam-packed episode for you guys today. We're going to be joined in just a moment by John Carvalho, and we're going to talk a little bit about the updates coming out of Synonym. And then, of course, we're going to kick things off in maybe 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 for some news and notes. P, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Chris, are you ready?
Absolutely ready.
Then let's kick things off with some Bitcoin Magazine news on this Tuesday, November 1st. And we're going to start with what honestly may have broken Twitter, gave me quite a few laughs. I hope it gave you some laughs as well. But Edward Snowden, longtime Bitcoin advocate, speaker at Bitcoin 2019, tweeted out yesterday a picture of the Bitcoin white paper, and in addition, took to the Twitter sphere and started rage commenting on any FUD about Bitcoin and scalability. So all I got to say is shout out our boy Edward Snowden. Love to see it. I don't know if either of you, Chris in particular, if you have any thoughts here.
No, I mean, I think he's been hypercritical of Bitcoin in the past. He did mention a few altcoins in the past, saying that they were better privacy tokens and such. But yeah, no, it seems like he's kind of come around to it. He really thinks Bitcoin is a great invention, and you'd love to see him dispelling rumors. One guy famously tweeted back saying, "Oh yeah, like I like Bitcoin, but I don't want lines at stores." And basically Snowden said something along the effects of like, well, have you heard of the Lightning Network and how you can download this wallet and it's basically nearly instantaneous for transactions. So love to see him dispelling the FUD. And yeah, I think Snowden's a great ally to have on our team.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he is known in the community. Of course, Snowden is known for the leaks that he made to the public around some of the massive overreach that the United States government has been perpetrating against its own citizens for a long time, and kind of made us aware of some of the global surveillance issues that have become prevalent in modern society. And I think it's fantastic that he is actively a pro-Bitcoin supporter.
All I got to say is shout out Edward Snowden, because you confirmed what me, my family, and all of my crazy uncles long suspected since 9/11. Let's talk, though, about how much the state really hates SP.
Yeah, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, surprising no one, absolutely hates your freedom. They were created after the 9/11 attacks and have been actively eroding the privacy of not only United States citizens, but citizens all over the world ever since. They are a horrible organization. Specifically, what this story is about is it turns out that they have been regularly meeting with tech companies, including Twitter, Facebook, and Wikipedia since 2020 in an effort to coordinate content moderation efforts. This comes to us from the Intercept, and they basically have forced these tech companies to create backdoors into their systems to allow them to, and the tech companies themselves, and systems that allow them to very, very specifically shape the public conversation, the public discourse around certain issues. So specifically, the Intercept reports that behind closed doors and through pressure on private platforms, the US government has used its power to try to shape online discourse, as I just said. According to meeting minutes and other records appended to a lawsuit filed by Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, discussions have ranged from the scale and scope of government intervention in online discourse to the mechanics of streamlining takedown requests for false or internally misleading information. Specifically, they say platforms have got to get comfortable with the government. It's really interesting how hesitant they remain. Microsoft executive Matt Masterson, a former DHS official, texted Jen Easterly, a DHS director, in February. Again, this should surprise no one. You need to understand that if you are interacting with a public platform like Twitter, like Wikipedia, even like Google, These are heavily, I would say, illicitly moderated platforms. The information that you are being shown, the information that you are allowed to find, is actively being controlled not only by these companies, these private companies, and that should make sense to you because they are private entities that are there to make money from advertising dollars. Now, Wikipedia, of course, is in its own category, but Google, Facebook, Twitter, these are all companies whose entire business model is serve you content so that you will be willing to stick around so that they can sell your attention to advertisers. That's their entire model. So you should expect that the things that you are allowed to see on those platforms is not driven by free speech. It is not driven by trying to help you become a better person or understand the world around you more effectively. It is driven purely by profit motive. That should surprise no one. What is surprising in this story, and still should be not too surprising, is that the government is actively putting pressure on these entities to follow a consistent narrative. And we've all known this, but these documents make that hyper clear and go into a ton of the specifics around it. And it's pretty scary. What do you guys think?
You want to go ahead, or you want me to take it, Q?
You're already unmuted.
All right. I think it's a little disheartening. I agree, P. I don't think anyone's shocked in their business model. Their business model is taking your attention and selling it to advertisers. I know there's people calling out Jack Dorsey, like basically this happened under his reign in 2020 before obviously stepping away even as the chairman of the board, stepping away as the CEO and stepping away as chairman of the board. I think I don't want to say he was compromised, but I know there was a bunch of letters or exchanges between him and Elon Musk, as well as a Twitter thread as he was leaving or stepping down as CEO of the company, basically saying if he could do it all over again, he would do it differently. What does he mean by this? Instead of getting co-opted by advertisers and obviously selling equity in his business. And ultimately, I think in the end, he only had like 2.3% of Twitter overall, like their shares outstanding, which is still a large amount of money for a corporation that's worth billions upon billions of dollars. He's not hurting for money. I'm not trying to advocate and say poor is Jack Dorsey, but I think my point is that like he lost a lot of the controlling share of the company by giving up board seats, and basically, I don't want to say he was co-opted, but anything he wanted to do. Basically, the board could vote against him, or they wouldn't push for things that he wanted. Ultimately, I think that's why he stepped away from Twitter, being like, I created this, I built it up into something, and ultimately, I don't think he said it became a monster, but like basically it seems like
it became a fucking monster.
But it became a monster and it became weaponized, that he thought Bitcoin is a way that the users are at the same, like everyone's incentives are aligned, that everyone is equal. Just because Michael Saylor has more Bitcoin than all of us combined, I could say that pretty confidently, does not give him more voting rights, power, coercion over the network. I mean, I guess he has a little bit more influence, but that is why we always say, don't trust, verify. It is like you are responsible for your money, for running your own Bitcoin node, for self-custodying your Bitcoin yourself. So I don't know. I think those are just a lot of the key points that I take away from it all.
So I actually have a different sort of take that I think
you and your liberal goddamn agenda. I'm kidding.
It's not about that. Like
you and your blue-haired craziness.
I'm not in support of this at all. This makes me very uncomfortable, but I want to zoom out a little bit to a different part of the conversation that we tend to have a lot. And that is around the idea that businesses, especially businesses, Bitcoin oriented businesses that are trying to grow, expand, or just establish themselves in different jurisdictions in the US, like different states, they are going to have regulatory hurdles. This is a regulatory hurdle for social media platforms. The reason I am saying that is it is not that much harder. In fact, I would argue it is much tamer of an ask for the US government to turn around and ask every single KYC exchange to hand over, hey, for tax purposes, we need to know who has been using your platform. That to me is terrible, wrong, and shouldn't happen. However, if you compare that ask versus the ask of, hey, we need to be involved with how you moderate and your users interact on your platform, and we need to are done on your platform, that to me is a far more aggressive act by the state and by the government. So the thing that I want to point out here is those fears that or like those doomsday scenarios of they're going to get lists of everyone who has bought Bitcoin from different exchanges. Like that is
that's already the case.
Totally. But to do or act on those, to do anything with it and say, hey, why didn't you pay taxes? You didn't report this on that.
Wait, I think that's a bad take, man. I think that we I'm sorry, dude. We all understand like that's how taxes work. Like 100%, if you are KYC'd on an exchange, you need to understand that that is available to the US government. If you get audited, all that shit comes out. So that to me that's just like par for the course. Like you got to pay your taxes. We have to fight those battles in legislative circles and by, appealing to our Congress people and all that stuff, by becoming, ungovernable. But everyone should understand that the financial system is already totally cucked. The reason I think this is distinct and different is this goes a lot farther. I'll just read a couple quotes and then I'll shut up so you can keep going. According to the draft copy of the DHS's quadrennial Homeland Security Review, which sounds Orwellian as fuck, just off out of the gate, DHS's capstone report outlining the department's strategy and priorities in the coming years, the department plans to target inaccurate information on a wide range of topics, including the origins of COVID-19 pandemic and the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, racial justice, U.S. withdrawals from Afghanistan, and the nature of the U.S. support to Ukraine. The challenge is particularly acute in marginalized communities, the report states, which are often the targets of false or misleading information, such as false information on voting procedures targeting people of color. There's also an important aspect of this, which is this could be generalized, but in this report, it becomes clear there is a formalized process for government officials to directly flag content on Facebook or Instagram and request that it be throttled artificially or suppressed entirely through a special Facebook portal that requires a government or law enforcement email to use. So the thing that is so fucked up about this system is it's not just in the abstract. It's actively happening right now today, and they're telling you exactly what they're doing. And if you can control the dialogue that people have, if you can control the information that they see, especially when the average person expects or doesn't understand that it is carefully manicured to create a specific belief system in their own head, it is so much more insidious and it is so much more dangerous than getting your tax information, which is also crazy fucked up. So I agree with you there. But this goes a step further in my mind.
That's exactly what I said. You literally took my take, reset it, and then said my take was wrong.
I like P's take better. Sorry.
In that case, Q, you were wrong the whole time, and I was always right. No, that's
Chris, let's talk some shit coins.
Oh, God. I hate when you say it like that, but we're going to do it anyway. UniSwap has some interesting data. So according to research, 97.9% of tokens launched on UniSwap are rug pulls. Color me shocked. Yeah, crazy.
Wait, what about the other 3%?
Oh, great. I'm glad you brought that up, Pete. They had great intentions, also rug pulls.
Oh, sick burn, bro. Sick burn. Yeah, that is...
So, how much money did you lose on Uniswap, Chris?
0, because I don't shitcoin.
What do you think, you believe him?
I think it was a couple grand at least.
Nah.
Maybe 3. I think Chris blew his wad and 3 grand on Uniswap. Let it be known.
I haven't lost 3 sets, let alone 3 grand. Those babies are in cold storage. I took, advice from P. One's on a cheetah, one's on a whale, one's on a bald eagle. It's American as fuck.
Well done, my friend. Well done.
Q's looking at me confused. It's collaborative multi-sig. It's a crazy contraption. We're going to get him to run a node, and he'll have this set up as well.
I guess, but didn't we catch P's bear last week?
We may have.
That was part of a previous multi-sig setup. There used to be a bear involved, a grizzly bear, but that one died. Luckily for me, it's a 3 of 5, or it was a 4 of 5. It doesn't make any sense. Don't sweat it. Let's keep going. The people want to hear the news.
All right. Well, let's talk Papa Biden. And let's talk how everything he says makes no fucking sense. Joe Biden comes out and says, I'm a capitalist, and then just shits on ExxonMobil for making a profit in the least capitalistic, most socialistic way and approach I've ever seen. Chris, can we pull up the chart that was tweeted out by Zero Hedge that compared the I believe it was the net income of Apple to ExxonMobil? And in this chart, you will see that Apple's net income is trending lower while ExxonMobil's is trending higher. Regardless of what you think, how you feel about gas prices, A, unless you live in California, I don't want to hear you complaining about gas prices because none of you guys have it worse than what we have in California. So there's that to discuss and break down. But this is just pure virtue signaling. This isn't like, the sad truth is Biden didn't even like go after Exxon. He just like said something and he's like, oh, Exxon, like you guys, rah, rah, rah. Okay. So you're just making it look to a small population of people that you're hoping will vote for you and your party that, hey, you called out big oil, like, oh, rah, rah, rah. Holy fucking shit. I'm so sick of this. Like, I didn't realize next week is the election even. I guess we should probably acknowledge that. Throw it in the chat if you're actually going to vote. I'm curious to see how many of our viewers, or comment, leave us a comment, tell us if you're going to vote. I myself.
Does buying more Bitcoin count as voting?
No.
Fair enough. Okay.
I just want to support what you said, Q, and echo it. This is all a farce. It is insane for the president of the United States to try to rail against the oil and gas industry here. It makes absolutely no fucking sense. We've talked about this in the past, but trying to implement price controls like this actually leads to chaos and causes deaths, and it completely breaks the incentive structures in place that should positively affect
You are 100%
price.
correct, but I want to just really clarify something for people who are listening. There is no price control that was rolled out. There's no policy around oil. This was literally, he just got up on a stage to say a fucking tagline to make himself look good or make his party look good as we are 7 days out from an election. So I fully agree with everything you said. Price controls historically have never worked. They have literally been the kiss of death for fiat currencies all throughout history. However, there was no policy rolled out.
Totally right. It's all that is the more significant thing. It's literally just him being like,
signaling.
yeah. You know what I also hate? The fucking weather. Who doesn't like it when it rains on your parade? And people are like, ah. Yeah, you're
totally like fuck the fact that it's cloudy outside.
I also want to say, coming from the energy sector, energy is like one of the most competitive industries in the world. What I mean by this is everyone's fighting to have their energy bought, and you produce it in excess and all that. I think on gasoline, it's 3 cents per gallon of gasoline is like the margin that they're operating in. So it's like very narrow margins. It's highly competitive. It's a global market. Like, might be, honestly, aside from, like, it's even probably more competitive than banking, because even banking is country by country based, where Bitcoin is a global network. Oil and gas is the only other, I'd probably say, aside from like internet business, is the only other global thing as well. So it's pretty crazy.
Down with the petrodollar. I will leave it at that. But P, let's take it back to Bitcoin.
Indeed. This is a brief story. I just wanted to talk about, we talk a lot about building with Bitcoin, and I think it's really important to highlight developers, companies that are using Bitcoin for its superior qualities rather than, trying to kind of contort themselves into creating things that involve Bitcoin. There is a cool website. It's fun. It's super low lift, called Sat Battle, that I've been playing around with. You can just go on there and, play games and earn sats. I like it because it's just so simple. There are other systems out there like, Thunder Games or, Zebedee, which are much more built out and have, APIs and SDKs that allow developers to integrate those, Bitcoin, the Lightning Network into existing games. But it's just a fun thing you can play around with if you want to just go right now, engage with the Lightning Network, and potentially earn some sats. Much more likely you're going to lose those sats. That's satbattle.com. Let's keep going. Chris, what we got next?
Yeah, so the next story, very quick one. Twitter locks out employees. What do I mean by this? So obviously Elon finished the purchase of Twitter on Friday. So they started disabling employee access to several internal content moderation and enforcement tools. Many people that are pro-censorship were freaking out, saying this is a bad thing. Elon was quick to respond to the Bloomberg report saying, hey, like, the head of content moderation is, all claims are going through him. There used to be a team of 75. There's now a team of 15. But they locked down internal employees' accounts for being able to change or update things, but they have not changed any of the source code, meaning that any of the controls or restrictions from the prior administration are still functioning and it's still in operation. And this is just normal. This is actually normal business practice when a business goes from one ownership group to another ownership group. This is to prevent employees from, fraudulently or getting pissed and changing the code. So I don't see any issue with this. Some people were quick to freak out and jump onto the news. Anything you guys want to add?
I will just say on this point, R.I.P. Ligma Johnson once again. Like, pour one out for the homie, and then of course, I'm very open. Like, I love listening to the All In podcast, and the most recent episode. If you guys aren't aware, the All In podcast has two of Elon's new Twitter board members are just on the All In podcast every week. David Sachs and Jason Calacanis make up two of the four people. And the most recent episode, they spent a lot of time talking about plans for Twitter and how they want to approach, I think, this new iteration, how to handle content moderation, how to handle this verification process. So it's going to be a very, I think, interesting time on Twitter. That said, I just feel like there's a degree of this where you have to recognize Elon Musk is the largest troll on Twitter, full stop. And he is doing and saying certain things to garner an emotional reaction and response. So I think you're just seeing a lot of people play into his hand. He's doing exactly what he's saying things, and people are reacting the exact way he expects and frankly wants them to. So I would just say, like, sit back, relax, enjoy the show, let it play out. There is literally nothing you can do. I'm sorry, unless the person listening to this is Jason Calacanis, David Sachs, Elon Musk, who I know all listen to our podcast and await its daily release on bated breath. Like, with the exception of that very small group of people in the boardroom, just chill the fuck out. Are we gonna skip this next story, P? All right.
No, hit the next story, the MakerDAO.
Chris, you need to read the chat. Pete, go to the next story.
No. This is a huge one. Talk about the MakerDAO story.
We are talking. Oh, okay.
Yes.
I am misunderstanding. Okay. All right, guys. So A, I'm going to tell you this story. B, if I get killed, die, or just you never hear from me again, I did not run away. I did not hide, and I did not get suicided. So it turns out the 29-year-old co-founder of MakerDAO, Nikolai Muchgian, I really hope I pronounced your last name properly. He has been found dead in San Juan, Puerto Rico, just days after tweeting the following tweet. CIA and Mossad and the pedo elite are running some kind of sex trafficking, entrapment, blackmail ring out of Puerto Rico and Caribbean islands. They are going to frame me with a laptop planted by my ex-girlfriend who was a spy. They will torture me to death. That was sent 5 days before he was found dead. Some other tweets that he was sending out in the months leading up to this incident. Before, I thought it was Illuminati, CIA people doing sophisticated moves to set me up somehow because I was a threat to central banking cartel. Now I realize these are probably the cheapest please money. Cheapest, I think it was a typo for him to say people money can buy, sent by local banking duopoly. Even round one shills in chat were smarter. Another tweet, let it be known that I am somehow set up and framed or shot. It wasn't through sophisticated actions, but from sheer perseverance by people with infinite time and money to waste. And the final one I want to reference here is 3 possible futures for me. 1, suicide by CIA. 2, CIA brain damage slave asset. 3, worst nightmare of people who fucked with me up until now. I am sure these are the only options.
Hate to put my tinfoil hat on, but this guy says this all leading up to it, and then found dead.
Glad you haven't read it.
Right. I want to throw one more, just conspiracy theory, because this is a trend, and like, I'm a house music aficionado. I cried when Avicii died. I also love, and I mean like love with a burning passion, Anthony Bourdain, both what he did and the message he would send. Both of those gentlemen were working on a documentary about child sex trafficking. And you have the co-founder of MakerDAO, openly discussing on his social media about a potential sex trafficking ring going on. Now, I'm not saying this is all connected, but I am saying
implying it.
I don't fucking believe in coinkydinks. I just don't. Like,
Q, you know who also was working on those? Paul Walker from the Fast and Furious
Yes.
series, as well as Chester Bennington, the lead singer of Linkin Park. And all four of them were either committed suicide or killed in a weird freak accident. I'm just saying.
I mean, like,
this sounds incredibly suspicious. Not gonna lie.
Without the tinfoil hat, without even trying to.
No, I agree. Look, I don't think that Epstein killed himself. There's too many incredibly well-connected people that it looked like we're going to be implicated in that kind of situation. So the truth is, I think that there is almost certainly something very weird and fucked up going on here. However, someone who is having a mental episode, who might be about to commit suicide, could potentially tweet something like this out. Maybe they were having a psychotic episode. There's just no way to know. So I just want to make sure that we're not immediately jumping to this person was absolutely suicided by the CIA, and that because it sort of reinforces our own belief systems, which, by the way, CIA totally suicides people. They do that all the time. They're fucked up. Fuck those people. But I think we need to hold ourselves accountable for really critically evaluating all situations, not just the ones that fit very neatly into the pre-existing belief systems that we have. That'd be my only feedback.
All right, that's fine. I will just counter your.
Seems too easy is kind of what I'm getting at.
But that's the point. Like, the simplest solution or the simplest explanation is often the right explanation. And the fact of the matter is, this simulation is so royally fucked up, and I'm just sitting here in my mom's basement wondering how they're gonna say that I suicided myself.
Sounds good.
I love life.
I love that you think that you're significant enough to for the CIA to come in and make it look like you accidentally slit your femoral artery while manscaping, and that seems like something you totally do, by the way.
Do you see how much hair I have on my face and neck? You really think
I'm sure you have a bearded anus? It's got to be just disgusting down there.
Okay. Before we gross out our audience here.
It's too late, man. Look, I just call the facts as I understand them. Chris, take us through our last story before we bring on the revered John Carvalho.
Yeah, so LND broke again. What do I mean by that? So lots of Bitcoin and Lightning infrastructure not syncing because of a bug in BTCD triggered by this transaction. There was a transaction with over 500,000 witness data. Normally, the limit for BTCD was only 500,000. There was also an op return in it, basically saying you'll run CLN, meaning Core Lightning, and you'll be happy. Shout out to Barack. He is a young kid and developer that's working on Lightning. There's a lot of blowback on Twitter that people were saying, oh, this kid is purposely looking for bugs and breaking Lightning. Elizabeth Stark, the CEO of Lightning Labs, called out this developer, Barack, for saying that he works for Blockstream and that he's a shill for them. And by breaking it, he's helping Core Lightning's case, which is obviously owned by Blockstream. I have a different take. And Adam Back was quick to respond and said, yes, we have supported him with supporting him as a developer, but he's not on our payroll in the sense of hey, we're having him go out and break LND. I have a take that Bitcoin or the Lightning Network has not been tested in an adversarial environment. What do I mean by that? We have not seen nation-state level attacks, or at least I don't think we've seen nation-state level attacks on the Lightning Network. I would much rather one of our own or Bitcoiners find ways to break and hinder this network ourselves and fix them internally. There was a lot of people claiming the ethics of this is not right. Normally, when you find a bug, it's common courtesy in the developer community to reach out to them, say, hey, I found this bug. Can you please update it? It's common practice to say in a couple months they will patch the bug. It's not okay if it's a couple years. These are all kind of nuanced ways of, of looking at it. P and Q, anything else you guys want to comment on this situation in general?
I'll jump in, which is to say, I agree with you completely. I think that there is conflict between Blockstream and Lightning Labs. They have slightly different approaches to the development of the Lightning Network in terms of the spec process and how, one should be developing and whether things should be built into an agreed upon spec that all protocols are following, or whether it should be something that each individual, company invests in with their own implementation. And to be clear, when we're talking about the Lightning Network, the reason when we talk about like LND or CLN or Eclair, these are implementations of the Lightning protocol that are designed to be interoperable for the most part. So Lightning Labs produces LND, which is the most widely used implementation of the Lightning Network protocol. And Blockstream produces CLN, which is a different but interoperable version of or implementation of the Lightning protocol. There's other ones. There's, Async makes Eclair. Anyway, the point is they're all kind of playing in the same playground, and there are these debates that happen between them about how the Lightning Network development should be happening. So the claim is that Adam Back is saying, or rather, CEO of Lightning Labs, the group that was affected by this bug, is saying that basically this person, Barack, was kind of a Blockstream shill. Now, I think this is great. I think, as you said, we need to be operating in adversarial environments. We need people putting this kind of work and effort into breaking things so that it makes the system stronger as a whole. I can see the argument that this is something that should be disclosed privately to the organization so that they can improve it. I think that's I'm less convinced by that, but I can see that being a reasonable argument. But I agree. Overall, when people are coming down on Barack and they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You're hurting the Lightning Network," I disagree profoundly. We have got to get this shit figured out right now because we are going to be in an actual battle in the very, very near future. We have to test these things. We have to force them to get fixed as rapidly as possible, because if he did this in the kind of, responsible disclosure way, then maybe governments could use this during that period between when it was, shipped, or rather when they were notified and when it was actually fixed, to potentially attack the Lightning Network and do much more damage. So I think it's all good. People should expect it, and Bitcoin is for enemies.
Yep.
Cool beans. On that note, I want to remind everyone that tickets for Bitcoin 2023 are available. We are going back to Miami, May 18th through the 20th. Use promo code BMLive to get 10% off of your tickets before ticket prices go up. And of course, with the election coming up in just a week, we are releasing a new issue of the print magazine, and this issue is going to be called the Orange Party Edition. You are not going to want to miss it. Get your subscription at the Bitcoin Magazine store and use promo code BMLive to get 10% off during your checkout. We will be back after these commercial breaks with John Carvalho. Stick around. Thank you for sticking through those commercial breaks, and I am excited to introduce our guest today. He is the CEO of Synonym. You know him as John Carvalho, also on Twitter as Bitcoin Error Log. John, welcome to the show.
Hello. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm a little out in Italy at the moment.
Your audio sounds insane.
Are you doing that on purpose? I feel like you're
This is incredible. It sounds like a complete troll. Your voice sounds like it's a super slowed down robot. It's very weird. We got to get it fixed. In the meantime,
I'm fully convinced he did this on purpose to us.
no, John wouldn't. John loves to troll people. John is a consummate professional when it comes to that. He knows exactly what to say just to, stick the barbs in over Twitter and also educate people as he's doing so.
Sounds exactly like you.
God, I wish I could claim as much skill as John has. The truth is John is a master and I am but a neophyte. I also want to correct something that I said just a second ago. Apparently, and I have not verified this, but someone in our chat has pointed out or claims that the bug that we were talking about in LND, or to say more specifically BTCD, that affected the LND implementation of the Lightning Network, was reported. So we were just talking about it a second ago during news and notes and talking about how perhaps he could have reported it previously. Apparently, again, not verified, he did actually report it. You'll have to confirm that for yourself, but I wanted to make that clear. It also did not take down the LND implementation of the Lightning Network entirely. It just affected some of the ways that that specific things worked. So the average end user apparently would not have been affected by this bug in the same way that the previous bug that happened would have.
John.
Now we can't hear you at all.
Now you're just muted.
But maybe I'll switch my voice to a similar one just so we can sort of like have, I can be on your level. Let's see. How about
This one. How do I sound?
You sound like a better version of what John was 2 minutes ago.
All right, I'll stop doing that immediately then.
John. Yeah. Chris has got it. But while John figures that out, I guess we might as well just point out one of the other stories that we glossed over or deleted.
Glossed over. We chose not to dig into it because we had so much packed content. But now we have time to go back to it.
Okay, I think John is back.
That story we just talked about, you'll never hear it.
All right, you should be able to hear me now.
Oh,
yes.
Brilliant.
What's up, guys?
It's good to see you, man. Your hair looks incredible. Also, your beard. What happened?
I got this light coming down on me, so it's giving me the sheen.
To be honest, what I've learned is the direct bright lights, not the vibe. What you need is you need just enough shade to put a little bit of mystery into your face. The way you have the shadows cast. Excellent lighting.
Yeah, well, I guess. So what's up, guys?
The usual, talking shit, talking about the Lightning Network. I'm curious if you have thoughts about, actually, before we do that, let's properly introduce you. Q did a good job, described you as the CEO of Synonym. I briefly mentioned the fact that you are an expert troll over Twitter and that you do it in such a way. No, it's true. Don't deny it. We both know it's true. No. See, here's the thing. You troll, but you do it in such a way that. But no, why? Sorry, trolling can be a fundamental personality trait, but you do it in such a way that it forces people to reevaluate their assumptions and forces them to learn more about Bitcoin as they go forward. That would be my argument. I'm curious, would you agree with that? Would you disagree?
I would agree with your description, but trolling, as the definition I understand, is wasting people's time or trying to incite emotion to waste people's emotion.
Denial of service attack.
And I am trying to be productive.
I like your more precise definition, and I agree with your assessment. When I say the word troll, I mean it the way you described it. So thank you for helping to educate people.
Definitely, P. You
More
are
provocative,
Provocative. You're an agent provocateur, but see, these all have negative connotations. Fuck. John, can you give people, we talked to you before, but just for listeners who were not here in a previous conversation, can you talk about your journey to Bitcoin and what your role in the space has been so far? Because you've accomplished some pretty interesting stuff, especially related to the Lightning Network more recently.
I mean, how long do you have? I think I hit 10 years in Bitcoin last month. So, there's a lot to cover, but my journey to Bitcoin, make it quick summary, let's see. Silk Road, trading, mining, Exotica, Bitrefill, Synonym. And so that's the very short version. But yeah, it's basically been a transition from going to, just being a regular old Bitcoiner and then trying to figure out a way to be in the Bitcoin business, and figure out actually having a company and building things for Bitcoiners. And that's where we are today. And I'm very lucky to have a really awesome team and really awesome support, monetarily and business wise from our investors. And now we're finally shipping things to kind of show people what our vision it really is.
I love it. And I know this, but what was your claim to fame with regard to the Lightning Network, which Synonym, obviously is built on top of and uses intimately, at Bitrefill? You accomplished some pretty interesting stuff there.
So my hotel Wi-Fi is not good, and all I heard was, "What is your claim to fame?" and nothing after that.
I was trying to lead you into talking about how you helped Bitrefill adopt the Lightning Network.
Well, I think they were going to do it without me, so I don't want to make that my claim so much as I did kind of join the company right when they were, going on that adventure, and I definitely, turned up the volume on that while they were. But I like, it was their own idea to get into it before I arrived, and they had like the Thor LSP product, and they were accepting Lightning payments as one of the first companies, and now they're arguably the biggest commercial Bitcoin accepting business that I know of, that we would call a Bitcoin business. And while I was there, we helped convince Bitfinex to be the first major exchange to add support for Lightning, and that's how I kind of got a closer connection with Paulo Arduino, and how Synonym was funded and formed as well.
I love it. Okay, so can you take us through what Synonym is and how it reflects your beliefs about the Lightning Network, kind of the direction that it is going?
Well, I mean, Synonym is much more than just the Lightning Network. I do think we fit it into our kind of model of our vision. But what Synonym's trying to do is just basically assume that Bitcoin will win, and make sure that we have a complete, reference implementation of the future economy. And so we're trying to say, take the assumption that Bitcoin has dismantled big banks, has removed the power from big state to, control the economy, and has removed the power, and then hopefully also remove the power to, free people from big tech and the kind of centralized aspects of the web, to where people are not just controlling their own money, but also controlling their data. And so what Synonym is trying to do is show, like, here is actually a model of software, protocols, and services where if you combine them all, you actually have an entire separate economy, really a separate society, at least in the digital sense, that you have all the tools you need to operate without those things existing: big tech, big banks, big state.
Got it. Okay, so you joined us today to talk about, I believe, a couple things that you have recently announced with regard to Synonym. My understanding is that you've just launched a new Bitcoin wallet app, which I want to hear about, and the specific functionality that it has that is unique to Synonym, and how that works with the Lightning Network. And then also something related to slash tags, which you talked to us about last time you were here. So maybe let's start with the wallet that you guys have launched, what it's called, and why it's unique, and then let's shift to the other thing as well.
Sure. So we just launched the kind of beta testing version of Bitkit, and Bitkit is meant to be like your ultimate Bitcoin toolkit. And so what we did was we tried to basically start from scratch on the idea of what a Bitcoin wallet, should have in it, at least a mobile Bitcoin wallet, and tried to see how we could include a new user experience that incorporated these kind of holding your own data, next web kind of features. I'm using next web because incidentally, because it's not Web3, it's not Web5, it's not, SSI, it's not DID, but it's just solving the problems and showing people that they can do things that they couldn't do before apply some of these technologies and combine them with a Bitcoin user experience. So Bitkit supports regular on-chain Bitcoin transactions, and there are various cool features and user experiences for how we display that in the app. It supports Lightning Network, and that runs by a LDK node. So we've implemented LDK node in a mobile wallet, so you can kind of quickly get onto Lightning. And we've also fully integrated Blocktank, which is our LSP service. So you can really get a really smooth user experience for onboarding and connecting to the Lightning Network from your own node, holding your own keys, etc. And then we've also fully implemented all of the current /tags features into Bitkit to kind of provide a whole new set of features that you've probably never seen in a wallet before. Maybe some shitcoin wallets do some of these things, I don't know. But that includes the kind of category of a public profile. And your public profile is much like your Twitter profile would be, but except you own it. And so you can, choose your photo, choose your name, choose your bio, and, you can add a link list on there, kind of like a product like Linktree or such. And you can just show a QR code to anyone, and they can add you as a contact. So we basically merge the concept of phone contacts with the concept of like social media profiles. So this way, your contact list isn't just this database that you're always entering data into that's always going stale. It's actually dynamic data that is provided by the contact. And so when you update, your bio or update your photo on your phone for your profile, it updates for all of your contacts in their phones because you own the data. And so the data automatically propagates from your networked drive. I won't get into the technology unless you want me to, but I can. But there's basically this capability of having a network drive on the data, but anybody else can serve it for you with integrity because only your key can write to that drive. So now you take this profile and contacts concept, and we also have this feature to be able to pay people over this protocol. And so what it does is when you want to pay somebody's /tag or their profile or their contact, whatever you want to call it, it actually goes to that drive and it checks what payment methods you support, and the endpoints for those payment methods are listed there. And so if you want to pay me and I am online, you can programmatically, automatically request an invoice. And so it does this all in the background. The user experience in Bitkit is simply, you choose an amount, you choose a contact, and you hit send. And the rest happens in the background. And so if you're offline, it will pull a on-chain address and it will send you an on-chain transaction. If you're online, it will pull a Lightning invoice and it will pay you over Lightning if both parties support both things. And you can add as many payment methods as you want to this as possible. And so we'll demonstrate that in the future, which is another thing we can talk about if you want when, for example, we start supporting pair credit, which is another thing that we kind of pre-announced at the conference last weekend. But that's not complete or ready yet, so Bitkit does not support that yet, but it will in 2023. And then if you allow me to keep ranting, the /tags features also include this concept of widgets. And so what we've done is we've kind of taken these drives, and these drives are append-only logs, again, locked by keys by the owner, and they can have any kind of data in them. And so we've demonstrated how you can basically create true dApps by having these data feeds that you could feed into any app that wanted to read them and follow these feeds. And so we made a few reference kind of examples where there are these stock widgets in the app, but they're actually just on a DHT network that any app could read. And so we have one that's for Bitcoin block data. And so you can see the latest block statistics in the widget. We have one that's for we've compiled a bunch of RSS feeds and put them into one for all Bitcoin RSS feeds. So you can see the latest Bitcoin headline. Bitcoin Magazine's included in that, by the way. And so if you see a headline, when you want to read it, you just tap on it and it opens up the web browser for that article. And we have another one that is just showing a Bitcoin price feed. And we've shown how you can show more than just data. You can start interpreting the data. And so there's actually a little price chart inside of this widget. So you can see the BTC USD price on Bitfinex and a little price chart of the last day. And you can change and you can edit the settings for each of these widgets because the feed might have multiple feeds within it. And so you could change it to say, the Bitcoin euro price if you wanted to. And so you have this little widget area in the app where you can display whatever you want. But one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm loving this.
And then the other kind of flip side of widgets is they're also a way to express accounts. And so, you know, how you've seen lately, there's been a little bit of a trend to being able to log into a website with a key. You have LNURL auth and some other, like MetaMask does this and some other things. Well, we've kind of amped that up as well. And the way it works is when you authenticate, the website is also a key as well. And so you don't need the domain name anymore. Like the website could be any domain name, but you know it by the key. And so the website has some kind of censorship resistance as well, because if they lose their domain name, they can still prove where they are in their new location.
Interesting.
But when you log in using Bitkit, it makes a widget of that website that you have an account with. So it's also your accounts. And if the website supports it, you can have 2 extra features on top of that. One of them would be an account feed, and the other one is magic linking. And so basically what that means is not only could you scan a QR code to log into any website that supports this, but you could actually just tap to log in from Bitkit. And so you're in Bitkit, you want to log into your Bitfinex account, you just tap the card twice and it opens up the browser with you logged in, you know, by authenticating in the background using the noise protocol and the DHT. And if you want to, and you'll be able to do this soon, we're working on it with Bitfinex right now, as an example, you can have one of these widgets that's just all of the data in your Bitfinex account. So in Bitkit, you can see like your Bitcoin balance, you know, whatever you have in Lightning, but you could also see how much money you have on Bitfinex, or the latest profit and loss of your open margin trades, or whatever you wanted, whatever Bitfinex wanted to put about your account in the feed, kind of like an API key. And so this way, we're trying to show people that with slash tags, you can have like a serverless web that's powering dApps. Like you can have the user creating the data locally, and they have the key, and they're the only one that can edit that data. But anybody can serve that data on the DHT network, and anybody can now follow that data and assemble it any way they want.
So there's a ton of information there. And
Yes.
Forgive me, I'm going to ask you to break it down in a really, really simplistic way. So going all the way back, Bitkit is an app that leverages, is it fair to say, is produced by Synonym, or Synonym is your company. Bitkit is the wallet, but it's so much more than that than you've just released. First of all, first question: how do I get access to Bitkit? Can our users go do that right now? Is it in test flight? Is it something we can download?
It's in test flight in iPhone and the beta mode, or whatever it's called, in Android. We do have the amount of people that can download it right now throttled. We'll probably hit the limit in the next day or two, looking at the current downloads. And there is still some bugs, and we were aware of them before launch, but we kind of wanted to use the Lugano Plan B conference as a launch opportunity, so we kind of shipped it. Fuck it, we'll do it live. And so we're trying to iron out a couple things, particularly with the Lightning node. There's still a couple bugs there, so there's limited functionality depending on which version of the app you're using. But you should have all of these things ironed out in the coming weeks. If you want to download it, install it right now, just go to bitkit.to, bitkit.to.
Okay. Yeah. I'm super excited. Okay, and then going all the way back, can you describe, like, how is this? You described a lot of functionality, and you talked about like data feeds, and I think what you said is that is it the case that your phone is running that you have full custody of the node that is running on your phone? Like, I guess I'm trying to understand, how is the data that one is producing, how is that owned by the person who's running the app on their phone? Like, how does that interaction work? If you can talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So the technology that we're using, like at the low level, is called Hypercore. And this is like a suite of different, it's kind of like slash tags, but it's a suite of modules for different use cases for a DHT, combining with a...
Can you define DHT?
Yeah, it's a distributed hash table. It's like, it's the way that BitTorrent works.
Yep.
If you want some familiarity there. It's just a way of being able to find something by using this table, and basically you kind of drill down to which nodes have the info, and then you start seeding the data from all the nodes that have the info that you're looking for. And so it's a way of kind of there's a lot of asynchronous data stuff you can do with it. That's really cool. But the coolest part here is that everything in this this model of a DHT, hypercore, hyperswarm, et cetera.
And these are existing systems that kind of anyone can integrate. When you say hyperswarm, hypercore.
Yeah, these things predate a synonym. They've existed, granted by only a year or two, but they've been building this out for the past few years. But it happens to be mostly developed by one of our sister companies called Hole Punch. You may have heard of the Key app. They're using the same technology to do the kind of peer-to-peer video and peer-to-peer chat for their app that they're working on. And they're also the company that we're teaming up with to do the pair credit project that I kind of mentioned earlier. But these network drives on the DHT, they're append-only logs. And they kind of work like a blockchain, except...
And append only, just for the audience, means that you can add data to it, but you can't delete data or edit it once it's already been added.
Well, you can actually delete data, you just can't change it. And
Okay,
so in other
got
words,
it.
you don't have to host old data anymore, and it still works. So if you want to purge data, you can. But you can't change the past without forking the drive, essentially. Just like a blockchain. Like you break the history, you've now forked the chain. And so this is a way of like enforcing integrity of these logs, because you know that only the key that created the log can write to that log. And that means that anybody can host or see the log, and you know that that it still has the integrity that you expect.
So anyone can host it, but only the person with the private key can actually append to it.
Right. And so you asked, how is it? You said, is their node? They have their own node. They're serving this themselves. So the answer is, just like with Lightning Network, they do it themselves when the app is open. Like Lightning Network is a live network. So when you have the app open, you can see if somebody wants to add you as a contact, they will most likely get that data directly from your phone, from the drive in your phone. But when you have it closed, what we do is, for free, we seed all Bitkit users public drives, because these are public profiles. Now they're public in the sense that you won't know they exist unless somebody tells you the pub key. So it's like more of an additive thing. So you have some control over the spread of information, but I say public because the data is not encrypted for the public drives. This way, anyone that you share it with can read it when you do share it with them. And so we seed any of the drives for Bitkit users, like if they're offline, for availability. And so the network allows this, and the users know that we can't manipulate that data once again, because essentially the drive is your drive. It's your key.
Because you're the only one that can edit it with your private key, which is stored on your phone. Interesting.
So I hope that answers your question.
No, it did. Okay. So once again, can you just describe at its core what the technology that this is leveraging is doing? Like, what is the sort of fundamental behavior that it's doing? Does that make sense? What is everything kind of built on top of?
I'm trying to describe it differently, because what I said does cover most of the basics of it. But just to kind of maybe describe it again or use it differently, I would say, imagine you were trying to, you had this network, and everybody on the network could you don't have like a public directory so much as this hash table. And so you have all this info, but the info needs to be drilled down. Like you only know, say the first little bit of data, literally the bit of, so you say, who has this bit? And then you say, okay, these are all the people that have that bit. Then you go one more bit down, you say, who are all the people within those that have the next bit? And you just kind of drill down to only the people that have the data you want. And so once you find all the people that have the data you want, you start seeding it from them. You start leeching it from them, just like you would on
just
BitTorrent.
Like you do with BitTorrent.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now once you know that key, and you know some peers that host that drive, you're basically subscribed to that key. And so it's like following someone on Twitter, except in a much more technical networked sense. You're not just following them with a button, and now Twitter is putting their
and it's decentralized when you're using, or it's more decentralized.
Well, it's not in other words, it's centralized because it's your data. You're the central point, right?
But it's hosted in other
The
places.
mechanism is distributed or relative. I don't know what the correct word that would properly convey it, so much as the data can come from everyone, and you can still prove that it came from the person you want. It can come from anyone, but you can still prove it came from the person you intended.
Got it. Okay. Interesting, man. I'm gonna go down with this. I'm super excited to play around with this.
So yeah, we got the profiles, we got the contacts, we have the payment protocol, we have the widgets, the account feeds, the accounts, the data feeds for just for the widgets as well. And so we've integrated as another example, maybe you've heard of Starbacker, and they're kind of doing like an adult-friendly social media thing, so kind of like OnlyFans. But I'm not sure if they're trying to target adults so much as adult-friendly. I'd prefer they describe their own product, but they have implemented /tags, the ability to basically do the authentication. And so if you make an account there using Bitkit, it will add a little widget on there, and so you'll be able to automatically log in with the magic link, just double tapping and not having to scan a QR code at all. And when you first create the account this way, it asks you if you want to pull your public profile. And so it'll go to the DHT and it'll say, hey, if you want, I can pull your name, I can pull your photo, and I can populate your Starbacker profile with this. And so it's kind of showing how you can have this portable profile that you can take with you to any website that supports this. So you could be, Bitcoin error log or Satoshi Nakamoto or, Craig Wrong or whoever you want on multiple platforms. And if that platform cancels you, they can't actually cancel you because your followers are following your key. They're not following a database entry that platform owns. So when they cancel you, they just get your drive from some other peer.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to repeat something back that you just said. So the website just becomes a way to interact with you. But once the person is connected with your information or your feed, that's basically a connection that is greater than that specific website. So it creates this inability for them to censor you or cancel you.
Yeah, so Bitkit is not a social media app at the moment. You can't like tweet with it, but we're basically showing how you can establish like a primitive network simply by making a contact list of different people that have these profiles. And then as we start to add features, these will eventually become, the people that you follow on our social media method, the people in your first web of trust, the people, these are all, we'll be able to demonstrate all this stuff through these primitives. You might call it, this is actually trying to make a dApp possible. Like when people talk about decentralized app, what that really like underlying the way to do it properly is just to say the data is owned by the key holder that creates the data. You can prove that they're the one that made the data, and you can get data from multiple sources and assemble it locally. So the ideal would be that you have if you want to have decentralized Twitter, well, that's actually an app you run on your computer or on your phone. And what it's doing is it's pulling from data sources from everywhere and assembling that data locally. And now if you want to scale that, you can say that what Twitter becomes is just basically a really large cloud host, where they're just kind of like, they're seeding and copying and following all these different drives and making them highly available.
Interesting. Okay. So with everything we've covered, so actually, Q, I'm curious if you have any questions, thoughts. I've been kind of monopolizing the conversation. I feel bad. Y'all
are so deep in the weeds. I have nothing productive to contribute here. I'm a student today.
I love it. I mean, as am I.
Well, you can be a QR code now, and people can add you to their contacts, and your QR code, no matter where you go, no matter which app you use, they can pay you over a QR code. You don't really need to know more than that. Other than that, it'll just work, and nobody can take it away from you. It's yours.
So what are the jurisdictional hurdles? Like realistically, I got a lot of travel coming up in December. If I wanted to have this as my sort of wallet, would I just any jurisdiction, any country I'm in, or are there still limitations in that capacity?
Well, it depends on how extreme you want to be about the requirement. Like I'll say like the positive and I'll say the negative. The positive would be the goal and the design here is to have your whole entire digital life be able to be respawned by one Bitcoin seed. And so what we do is we derive all of the keys for your drives and your profile and such. They're actually a key derivation scheme from your Bitcoin seed. And so when you make your Bitkit wallet, you get a Bitkit seed, and then you have a master key for your /tags keys. And then when you want to like reestablish that Like say, for example, you were really paranoid and you want to have a brand new phone when you travel and it's empty. And when you get to your location, you want to reestablish yourself. Well, you put in that seed in that phone when you get there, and it will actually it'll repopulate all of your contacts, and all of your Bitcoin, and you'll have this in one place. And all of the data, it'll just pull it from the DHT, from any seeders that are available. So it'll update the current data for each of your profiles, photos and bio and links that they have in their profile, and it'll just all reappear just from the seed. All you brought with you was a seed in your head, and you kind of recreated your digital life all in one place. And eventually this will include like your Twitter feed, your family photos, everything that you have for data that you want to be locked by a key and reestablishable from a network. You could do this way. Now the negative side would be, well, if you go to China and you're behind the Great Firewall, you might have a little trouble connecting to people that have your data. I don't know, but if there are people in China that are seeding your cores, you won't have a problem. And so it really depends on like the network availability of things. But that is actually a good segue to one of the cool parts about the underlying tech. Like the reason why our sister company Hole Punch is called Hole Punch. There's a concept called hole punching, which is about punching through networks to be able to get to the end user, despite the methods that are in the middle that kind of make that difficult. And so there's been a lot of work put into being able to hole punch through these networks to be able to make this kind of thing possible. It's not 100% punching through anything, but it's the best punching out there that we know of. And so it works pretty great. And then, in the coming year, we'll try to show you how you can incentivize this seeding system. So that's way, if you're going to China, you might beforehand pay somebody in China to be hosting your drives. So that way, when you get there, you can repopulate all of your data.
You are muted.
I pulled a P. God damn it. Damn it. All right. I got to ask now a very specific but personal question, because this has been a roadblock that I've been dealing with. But so I have family in Iran, working with them to try to help them sort of save what they can while they can still do those types of things. I mean, this seems like the perfect type of product for people who need to flee a country's situation. Can I send this to family in Iran, like literally before the Iranian government realizes what I'm trying to do?
Well, I don't specifically know the measures that Iran goes through to limit people's network or internet capabilities. So I can't say confidently yes or no. I just don't know. But I would say if Iran has pretty good ability to reach anywhere in the internet, then it shouldn't be a problem at all. To the scope of Bitkit. Like Bitkit currently is just a profile and a contact list. So
Right.
It's not actually all your data yet. Eventually, that's the plan. And so we first started with like the toolkit, and then, following products will include, solving the storage problems, like being able to pay people to seed your data and get paid to seed people's data, social media and publishing, being able to create content and have that be content you own, content you can monetize, and content that you can have portable and interoperable as well.
Cool. Okay. I have some noodling to do.
So what are some of the biggest hurdles from a technological perspective that Synonym faces as you roll this out?
I mean, I guess it would depend on, we have kind of three categories in the app. We have Bitcoin, Lightning, and slash tags. The hurdles for Bitcoin are not too bad, right? Like we've kind of had Bitcoin wallets for a while. We know how to get a good user experience in the app. I would say I'll use this as a segue into the Lightning one, because this affects Lightning more than Bitcoin. But some of the hurdles might be things like regulators wanting to create this concept of an unhosted wallet, and whether or not they start coming down on app providers as somehow being, say, virtual asset service providers or regulatable in some way, because they're a business providing some sort of monetary application. Now, everything in Bitkit is self-custodial. We don't have any accounts with Synonym. It's all yours. It's all your keys. And so we've kind of avoided most things, but there is some regulatory creep in that area. So that's a possible future challenge area, even more so with Lightning. With Lightning Network, when you do something like an LSP, you're now selling channels to your users. And so now you are now entering jurisdiction in a business sense of any users where they live. And so when you do something like that, like an exchange, for example, if you want to do that in the US, you've got to go through the regulations of every state, the federal regulations, multiple different federal organizations. You need to make sure your ass is covered. So we don't sell channels to the US. We do not do business in the US. Now, US users can use Bitkit, but they can't use the aspects where you would buy a channel from our LSP service. You're going to have to get your Lightning connection from someone else. So that's a challenge as an example. Another challenge is we're using a lot of cutting edge tech, including the Lightning node. LDK is a new implementation. This is the first time we're seeing it open in the wild. Blue Wallet had implemented actually before us in their wallet, but it's behind a dev mode. It's still in testing. They haven't fully switched over. They haven't really switched over because there are certain challenges. They want to make sure they can scale it. They want to see how they transition from custodial to self-custodial. I mean, you can ask Igor or Igor or Nuno what they think the challenges are in that regard. But we are just, we're starting out in the wild. We're saying this is LDK, use it. And LDK, still has some bugs that we have to work out that we're finding now that we're using it this way. And so that's another challenge is when you use bleeding edge tech, you have to pay the price of being the first one to implement it. On the slash tags front, the regulatory stuff was not as bad as I thought. Going through our legal team and making sure our asses were covered for helping people seed their data and all this kind of stuff. They control the data. We're not doing anything. We're not hosting photos, so we don't have to worry about naughty photos or things like that or illegal photos. So it's just your profile data. But we did have to be careful with private data. We have to communicate to the user which things are public, what data is exposed, what we can see, things like this. And so managing the PII aspects and making sure that's covered, that's a consideration. But I don't know, this stuff is maybe probably kind of boring for the audience, but these are challenges. These are things when people are building all this tech they have to deal with, and you have to go through lawyers. You have to have engineers that can handle all this cutting edge tech and explaining it to people. Trying to convey this stuff to you guys is a challenge. Trying to say how this works. So that's why we try to focus on in the app. It's not communicating technology. This is actually a big theme in Bitkit is we don't talk about Lightning channels. We don't talk about the Lightning network. It's just
you just utilize them to serve a specific function.
We try to speak in the terms of what problem is this solving for the user and what can they do now that they couldn't do before. And so when we talk about Lightning, it's you want instant payments? Okay, do this.
Absolutely.
If you want to have a public profile, do this. We're not going to say, we don't say slash tags in the app. We don't say hypercore. We don't say the Lightning network. We don't say an Electrum X, compatible server. They don't need to, we don't say LDK. They don't need to know any of those things. And we're very sensitive to that in the user experience.
No, I think that's a great point. I don't know if you were in the sort of green room before in the earlier segment, but I was talking about just a random website that I found that was fun playing around with the Lightning network in terms of interacting with games. And I think that's so important. A lot of people focus, I think, too much on trying to be we're building this thing with Bitcoin and throwing Bitcoin in there as a thing, which is cool and important. But I think it's so much more powerful when you're asking questions around what functionality can you implement? What functionality is the Bitcoin network and the Lightning network better at supporting, and then just driving towards that functionality rather than trying to sort of contort the network into some specific.
Yeah, and we're trying to show how when you combine these things, you can do new things. So, for example, when you want to send a Bitcoin payment, because you have slash tags in there, if you're using it, instead of pasting in a pub key or scanning a Lightning invoice, you just go to your contacts and you choose which person you want to pay. We're just the key stuff is not a factor if you're using the contacts feature.
Got it. one thing, there's a question in the chat, which is asking what this will supplant, or what it could supplant in the broader quote unquote like crypto space. What kind of functionality could this obsolete?
So one of the missions, not really a mission so much as a consequence of our vision and our design and our model for the future, is between slash tags, hypercore, pair credit, these kinds of things, we're really obsoleting a lot of shitcoin narratives, a lot of shitcoin use cases. Like when we add a technology and support it within our ecosystem, we very closely evaluate whether or not it can be done without a blockchain at all. And this is why we landed on working on pair credit as a design. It's a way to do tokens or credit tokens. And I think that credit is really the only reasonable use case for a token. And so that's why we're focused on that. And it doesn't use a blockchain. It uses the append log thing to have a cool new design and way of organizing these credit ledgers. So you can have a IOU that you can trade with a peer without having to have a blockchain. And so this adds a bunch of cool advantage, as it turns out, because you don't have to use a blockchain, you don't have to use a Lightning network. And so if you want to do a Lightning channel peer to peer, like if I want to pay you on using like Lightning style channels, I just connect to you. I don't need a route to you. I don't need to manage liquidity. I just connect to you and I pay you. And if we want to keep that channel open afterwards, we can. And if we don't, we just close it. It's just a disposable channel if we don't need it anymore. And there's no blockchain overhead in that regard. We can just move on with our day. And that's an advantage. You don't use a blockchain. You get instant, fast, cheap, available, connectable. There's a lot of advantage to getting rid of a blockchain with a lot of things. Same is true with Web3, with they're starting to get into identity. They're trying to say that NFTs are something to do with identity. I don't even keep up with the narratives, honestly.
There's such bullshit.
I guarantee you, if any of them are interesting or useful, we can do them without a blockchain.
God, that is so infuriating to me. It's just constant.
I got a stupid question that's going to piss P off, but I want to ask this. I think I understand, but I want to really emphasize this separation. Could we distinctly differentiate what you've described, John, the product you guys are rolling out, and where it is actually significantly different from a CBDC, beyond the fact that that would be something a government rolled out versus this being something a business rolled out?
I could probably do it on multiple levels, but I'll just riff. So a CBDC is a fiat, right? And a CBDC, the feature of it compared to what fiat has today is how they can limit its usage. Like that's the only feature of it, is how they can more tightly and confidently control how it is or is not used. Other than that, there's not going to be an advantage because, again, the blockchain is going to make it more expensive, et cetera, et cetera. And if they even use a blockchain, they probably won't. They'll probably use some sort of distributed ledger system. They might even use pair credit someday. I have no idea. But the difference between credit and fiat is credit is a promise on the issuer's reputation to redeem it for something specified. And so when for example, a gift card, if I buy a gift card that is $50 or a large coffee or a month of Netflix, like that business, that issuer now has put their reputation on their ability to redeem that credit. And if they ever become inconsistent to redeem that credit, the value of their credit on the open market will plummet, right? Their business might even go out of business, And so this is much different than fiat. Fiat, there's no promise. The only promise is that they'll accept it to pay your taxes. That's basically the main promise. And as long as you do that, they won't, commit violence upon you or put you in a prison cell or some equivalent. And so that's the difference between credit and fiat. Fiat has no backing. It's backed by violence, essentially. And credit is backed by something defined by the issuer. So you have an expectation of what you are owed for that credit, an IOU.
So
is there
Oh, go ahead, keep sorry.
I want to just go down this a little bit more. Is there an inherent, like, is credit not fiat in nature, or is there a way to create a healthy credit system through sound money? Because I feel like this is often like debated and discussed, and I don't act or claim to know the right answer to this. I'm just genuinely curious if you feel as though there are components of credit that just make it inherently fiat.
No, I mean, I think that's kind of, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but that's just a word salad. Like they have definitions. These things have definitions. To you guys and everybody in the audience, like if you want to try to like have a tighter grasp of both the dynamics of Bitcoin and the economics that are relevant to it, read Crypto Economics by Eric Voskuil. There's no Bitcoiner that understands these things on that level better, and he helps. And my interactions with him and reading with him help me understand these things a lot more deeply as well. But fiat, like he would describe Bitcoin as a market fiat. It is like it's almost like how some people would joke and say it's a headless Ponzi, right? Like there's no promise that you will get Bitcoin, that you'll get a trade value of Bitcoin in the future for any specific amount. Like Bitcoin could be gone and nobody would be accountable. Bitcoin could be the most popular thing on earth and you could buy a house with something that you only paid, $5 for. But there's no enforcement of the price by anything in the Bitcoin system, right? The only enforcement in Bitcoin is just the quantity of them that you have in the system. And so you don't know what you're going to get for your Bitcoin until you try to sell it. And it's all relative to the person you're selling it to. So it's just, there's no enforcement of the price. So in a way, Bitcoin itself is like a market fiat, a new type of fiat, because there's no controller, there's no central issuer. So it's something the market created to be able to have this concept of and use this resource, this abstracted resource, as a money. Now, a credit, credit and fiat are just two totally separate concepts. Credit is just simply saying, if you have people that trust each other, so you have Bitcoin for trustlessness. The market fiat, the trustless system is simply saying, if I want to have a unit of account where I don't have to trust anybody to be able to use that, like the ultimate store of value in the abstract, you have Bitcoin. Everything else is credit. So you can say that fiat maybe is a type of credit where they promise nothing. And so fiat is just fiat by decree, right? And so it's saying, this is money. You have no promise that the issuer will give you something for that money, unless you want to get philosophical and say, oh, they're going to give you, say, an army for that money if you agree to have that money inflated or taken from you at will. Like, I don't want to get philosophical, so we'll just say there's no actual promise behind fiat. But credit is a trusted system. It's like saying, it's acknowledging the fact that two people that trust each other can accomplish more than one person alone. So you can have the kind of singular nature. This kind of this dichotomy with humans. You have competition and cooperation. Competition, it would be that you wouldn't have society if everybody was competing on everything all the time. When you have cooperation, you have society. Society is trust. And so if you want to now cooperate with people over abstractions of economic concepts, you need credit systems. You need to be able to say, I have one coffee shop. I have proven to my friend, P over here, that I can run a pretty great coffee shop, and I want to have two coffee shops, but my profit margin to open two coffee shops, it would take me 10 years to open my second coffee shop, and I want to open one next year. And so P says, I think John can handle that. I'll trust John with my money. Now, this is just a form of financing, right? And so credit is like the minimum form of finance. It's just saying, I trust you for something in the future. And so I could say, okay, I am Starbucks, and I don't want to involve P. I want to say to my customers, hey, I'm going to sell coffees, and I want you to buy them for the future at, say, a 20% discount. And now you say, okay, well, I plan on buying coffees from John or Starbucks, for the next 5 years, and that's a great deal. And I'm going to pre-buy them. And I can take that and I can leverage that trust, and I can use that extra money to open the second coffee shop as long as I can meet my commitments to the redemptions of the coffee. And so you can see how credit is not that much different than finance, because you can kind of independently finance things if you take risks on leveraging your credit obligations. Sorry if I'm going too far.
That was such an excellent example and use case. I want to take it to the other end of the spectrum though, and discuss like the anonymity that a lot of Bitcoiners love to operate under. And in the system you provided, there may be, but there is not necessarily this formalized credit score that follows you around, just your reputational risk. But if people have, anonymous accounts all over the place, like, what is to stop me from taking 5 different UTXOs that are all fully anonymous, that you may not realize all 5 are linked to me, and I crater my reputation on the first 2 just to unwind, and then the other 3, because I've kept them separated, I still have that reputational sort of like thumbs up, blue check mark verification, or whatever that system is. How do you prevent that?
I think you have unfortunately, it's not your fault, but you have a distorted view on how reputation works, because there is actually not really any reputational friction to, say, getting a blue check mark. The way to get a blue check mark today is basically you can create a fake account that's mimicking your account, and you report that account as not the real you, and then you get an email saying, oh, if you want to prove you're the real you, send your ID and we'll verify you. And that's like the process for getting verified. So all it is just saying that you are the person. It doesn't say anything about you as a person. It doesn't say you're trustworthy or that you're a good businessman or you deserve to be lent credit or whatever. It just says you are the U.S. government or whoever thinks you're a real person. That's all it says. It's just a credential. Credentials are not reputation unless you attribute reputation to the issuer. Credential. And so in order to have a credit system or credit scores or social credit scores or reputations, or more importantly, webs of trust, you have to decide what how you weight reputation. And you have to have a way of expressing that digitally. So part of what we want to do with /tags, the longer term goal, is create these like multi-dimensional webs of trusts. So you have a way to express what you value and weight what you value within your contact networks over different paradigms. So you say, like, here is a reputation system that I use for, like, is this guy a true Bitcoiner? Yes or no? And if P thinks he's a true Bitcoiner, then now I'm going to assign some transitive trust to that guy. So maybe in a scale of 1 to 5, I say P is a 5, and then P says some other guy is a 5, and I'm going to say, okay, that guy's at least a 3. And so when I'm trying to make decisions and access my network, I can have these degrees of separation, or this kind of transitive trust by distance, like a trust distance. And I can have this over different paradigms. I can say, okay, like, P is really trustworthy when it comes to talking about Bitcoin, but I need someone really trustworthy when it comes to talking about my health. And so now I have like rating of doctors. And so I'm not going to ask, and P is going to be a 1 on that one, right? Like, and so when I have a doctor question, I'm not going to ask P, and if he answers, I'm not going to weight his answer very highly. But maybe, P rates somebody else a 5, and I say, well, P's pretty trustworthy. Maybe I'll give that guy a 3 as well. You know what I mean? Because I trust P, but I don't trust P's. You can start using these systems to form any type of kind of thing. So you assume the whole web is noise, and you use these knobs, these filters, to kind of trim the noise down to what you're looking for. And so the credit system, the way that you now, coming back to where you started, how are you going to dupe me if you're saying, oh, I'm on these UTXOs and I'm going to trick you to trust me and I'm going to rug pull you? Well, if you're a nobody to me, you're not getting any credit from me. Like, I'm not going to trust you, and I'm not taking any credit from you. So if you're a nobody, you're basically starting out at the baseline. You're buddy, and you have to build up. And if you build up, generally what you'll find looking at systems and societies is people don't want to lose their reputation. But what happens today is people measure reputation very, very poorly. They use very primitive methods. They say, oh, this guy's rich, so he must know what he's talking about. Or this guy has a lot of followers, and I didn't really know that people can buy followers, and so he must be influential. And these are very crude reputation mechanisms, but it's all people have, so they use them. And so we have to give people better tools for actually having like relative, subjective trust, measuring it, applying it, these kinds of things. Sorry for the rant.
No, like, do not ever say sorry for going on rants, especially when those rants involve dunking on P for my shitty question. So if anything, like, you're giving
I am an
extra 5 minutes.
Look, I am an excellent human and also bird doctor. So you should take doctor credentials as solid gold.
I will also say we should never trust P when it comes to food. Just any food recommendation should
dog food is high in protein. So are shoes. It's all just animal products. Get on board. So
I see you guys asked me in the chat. That's the book. That is the book. And also the book is available in hardcover for pay, but the PDFs are free. And he actually has a whole GitHub of all the entries in the book if you want to argue with him about it and edit the book. So
I can just look up crypto economics GitHub and I will.
Well, he has it under the Libitcoin organization. So Libitcoin is an alternate implementation of a Bitcoin node. It's a Bitcoin implementation and it's a project, and he has it within the organization on GitHub for that. But if you just search crypto economics at Law School, you can find his website. You'll find the free PDF, etc.
Chris, can you put that in the chat for everybody who's listening? I will definitely check that out, John.
I just got the PDF up here, Chris. Boom. Oh,
fantastic!
I have my weekend read locked in, and I always have to say
it'll probably take you more than a weekend. It's
I'm expecting this to be like a couple months
than a book. Yeah.
This is a one chapter a week, and I'm proud if I can do that much.
I mean, it did take me a while as well, and I think one chapter a week is better than no chapters a week.
Fantastic. I want to take this slightly different. Or go ahead, Q.
No, go. I was going to shift the direction, but you can.
I was going to ask actually, what other, not necessarily books, but videos, media.
Fuck up. Are you just reading my mind right now?
Yes, I'll always.
Dead ass was about to ask him for other recommendations. Just
what can I say? Great minds think alike. What are your favorite sources of media right now? Specifically, books that we should consume that you'd recommend for our audience or for anyone who wants to learn more about Bitcoin and what's happening in the world today.
Twitter.
I hate you. Give me something I can work with.
Who are your 5 favorite follows?
Let me explain. Twitter is like the closest thing we have to the system that I just described. You can curate your feed. You can decide who you follow. You can block and filter out noise. And if you take the time to do all these things, your Twitter is your morning newspaper, And if you can be disciplined and about not being a troll there and not tolerating trolls there and tolerating noise, you'll find over some time that it's actually a pretty great resource for learning what's new, learning what the people you care about, these kinds of things. And so I just wanted to kind of mention that point. And then I'll disappoint you again and say, I don't read many books. I don't listen to many podcasts. Bitcoin podcasts mostly suck. That's like, when you've been in Bitcoin 10 years, it's just the same thing over and over and over after a while. And all you really care about is like a cameo by someone who is building a thing that you're using, like somebody you respect, like this kind of thing. And those people, when you're around for a while, those kind of people don't tend to get interviewed as much either, because they're just not people want to interview pumpers and hypers and things like this. So you don't get a lot of that content. And so I don't read any Bitcoin books. I don't listen to any Bitcoin podcasts religiously. I look at it maybe once a month and see if there's one that interests me, but not every month do I find one. And so that's the honest answer. As far as maybe non-fiction fiction or such, I like what is it? Anathem by Neil Stephenson is a pretty cool book. It kind of, Bitcoiners should like it. It's like a possible future where the society forks into these mathematicians that become like monks, and they live in citadels, and there's the rabble that live outside, and they're kind of degenerating over time. And there's an interesting story where, with an interesting occurrence that makes them have to mix in the story. And I don't want to give away the story, but that's a pretty cool book. Can't think of more offhand.
Have you read The Mandibles?
No, I have not. I've seen Bitcoiners hyping it, but I have not read it.
It's in the same vein as what you just described, where set in the future from 2029 to I believe like 2046, so a window like that where it follows a family that's well off, that has a very strong patriarch, but as the dollar collapses, just how does this family that was once like had a silver spoon, and all of them were sort of expecting that the wealth would trickle down once the patriarch died, how do they adjust to the new reality of a hyperinflated dollar? The thing that was in that book that really stands out to me was the policy measures taken by the government that then triggered the hyperinflation we saw are not dissimilar from some of the policy measures very openly discussed today, right now, by our elected officials.
Yeah.
But the caveat is there's one line in there that talks about how Bitcoin failed, and it doesn't really like explain that. So I think the author, aware of Bitcoin being sort of the exit ramp, if you will, and had to sort of close that avenue off for the likes of us who are all going to flock to that book because it validates all of our worst fears.
I'll mention one more book, The Red Queen by Matt Ridley. This is a book I read at a pretty young age, maybe 22 or something, and it never left me. And he's written many books since then. He likes to kind of specialize in aspects of like evolutionary competition, memetics, things like this. And some people say that they like latter books better. And so he has a lot of books and I haven't read all of them. But basically the interesting thing here is it makes you think about life and human and really all life being this competition. And the theme of that book is just kind of pointing out how everything that we do comes back to sex, not in the pornographic sense, but in the sense that the competitive level is DNA and reproduction. And so that all of our incentives at the root are somehow to do with sex somehow, and being able to have sex so we can reproduce. And so much of our inclinations revolving around that. Now, I think you could debate that to some degree so much, but I think the DNA competition at least is correct. And so when you want to have a mental model of reality, thinking about these things as competition, DNA competition, adaptability, evolution, it makes everything make a lot more sense when you're trying to figure something out, even Bitcoin.
I'm definitely gonna have to read that one. One of my one of the things that I've always been really interested in is reproductive strategies for that reason. Like behavioral ecology, it's fascinating, and the incentive structures, as you said, are just really, really interesting, and they lead to a lot of behaviors. Which, of course, if you talk to a behavioral ecologist, which is someone who studies these in nature, animal systems, they'll be like, "But this does not apply to humans. This is just about animal models." And you're like, "But really, does it though?" And then they'll get all furious. But
well, a funny example, and maybe I'll regret saying this, but possibly controversial example, but I don't care what anybody does. But you have this big kind of woke movement, and within this woke movement, you have this like pronouncing and this kind of thing, and like what is a woman, and like all this confusion around gender and such. And the interesting thing is, like, you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't hurt me. I don't care. But strategies like, for example, that don't result in reproductive competition, your theory ends with you. You know what I mean? And so you need a strategy. You want to reevaluate your strategy if it doesn't involve perpetuating humans, the reproduction of humans that agree with you. And so you have to be careful of choosing your strategies. And I think that if you don't understand the primitives of evolutionary competition, you have to think about whether your life is something that is just like you're on a tour, like you got to be alive once and you're touring this reality and it's over, or whether or not you want to try to contribute to humankind somehow. And you have to be able to make an impact that outlasts your life to be able to do that. tried keeping that as abstract as possible, but yeah.
No, it's interesting. I'm trying to resist the urge to just drag us fully into behavioral ecology talk and keep it somewhat related to Bitcoin.
Everything's about Bitcoin. But in actuality, like we talk about this very openly, how you have to have a certain mentality to accept and understand what's going on and why Bitcoin can be a solution to the problems at hand. So that was my green light of saying, like, go fucking nuts, you cyborg.
Well, I'll ask a different question. Actually, I'm going to pull us back to Bitcoin. John, what do you think about the bug that was discovered in BTCD that Barack just, made popular by breaking to an extent the LND?
So my initial impression was, again, like Lightning Network isn't like a multi-billion-dollar Visa network kind of thing yet, right? And so when there's a bug that takes it out for an hour or two, it doesn't really hurt that much. But then after, that's my first immediate thought is like, funny, but it's you very quickly start thinking, okay, it was funny the first time, but the second time, it's like at some point you have to grow up and you have to say, okay, like, am I hurting or helping? And if you actually, again, are trying to help, you would just say, hey, if you want to put pressure on Lightning Labs or something, say, hey, can you please push this fix, or I'm going to have to show everybody that the network is in danger right now. And even that is like assuming, he has good intentions. I don't know the guy, but I think we have responsible disclosure culture for a reason. I think that, Lightning Labs already explained that they had a fix planned. They were just trying to keep things low key and get it out there. They didn't think somebody was willing to pay extra money to get a miner to accept a non-standard transaction just to break LND. And the thing is, this can happen with any software. So if you want to dance on LND for today and feel better than them, fine, but that shouldn't, that feeling, that glee should not last more than a moment if you are also a software producer, because it can happen to you as well. Like it could happen to Bitkit, it could happen to CLN, it can happen to Lightning Network on the whole, it can happen to Bitcoin. Like we always have to be conservative and respectful, and if we are here to help. If you're here to hurt, well, you're not on my team.
Do you know the specifics of what the disclosure process was? And because we initially reported it as he just sort of went for it, but somebody in the chat was saying that he did actually disclose this and then it just wasn't fixed fast enough.
No. Okay, so this is all like third party, secondhand, whatever. So I wasn't there and I didn't verify. But from what I saw, Anthony Towns reported this 2 weeks ago or so. Lightning Labs was aware of it. They had a patch for it, and they were going to push it with the next release. And so there was awareness, there was reporting, and I don't know if what's his name, Barack, I don't know his name. I don't know if he was aware of that, or if he was just like, okay, like Lightning Labs I'm going to do it again, and they're still not listening to me. I don't know what interactions they had and what his motivations were. Ask him, But he did it again, and it's impressive on some level, but it's also depressing on another level. Like the Lightning Network is not ready. I think maybe it's a good time to like take a step back and say, okay, what are our priorities here? Are we focusing too much on the science project of Lightning Network, continually adding complexity and new features when we should be maybe possibly focusing on the security and integrity of the network? And maybe there's a lot more work to be done there. Maybe, we need, if we're going to rely on BTCD, it needs to have 3 months of hardcore, development, testing and stress testing, just so we know that like LND is ready for somebody to have, 1 million users connected to their node. Like if we want to like kill Visa or, bring Bitcoin to millions and Lightning is supposedly going to be part of the solution, we got to be ready, right? You could argue things like this make it ready. They help. This is the stress test. But, to what degree can we preempt these things and do them before production? I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, this is complex stuff, and the more complex you make it, the harder it is to test it, the harder it is to feel confidence. And so I'm always an advocate for conservatism when it comes to Bitcoin, and that includes on. It didn't used to be this way, but it includes on too now.
Got it. Okay, so what is in store for Bitkit next? What are you guys working on that you hope to ship in the near future?
I would say, probably for the short term, it's just going to be bug fixing, polishing it up, covering any loose ends that we missed. Maybe a little bit of like taking the UX feedback from people that are actually using it and being like, oh yeah, that's obvious. Why didn't we think of that? Making sure we add that little tiny feature in there to smooth things out. That'll be the short term. Next year, I would say we have a few things planned. We'd like to get pair credit working, so we can bring something like, say, for example, like free tether, free tether transactions, instant tether transactions, blockchainless tether, for people that want to have credit. That's not my personal interest as far as a user. My personal interest is bringing gift tokens to the forefront, basically helping businesses with issuing credit, kind of like I described to you earlier, like being able to use your credit as a way to leverage your reputation. And so you can have this concept of product tokens and service tokens. So I'm even more interesting to me than having like Starbucks issue dollar tokens that you can only buy Starbucks products with. I'm interested in a coffee shop issuing coffee tokens that are for a specific product. Like this is a large coffee, this is a donut, whatever. And seeing how we can kind of have this like market of items this way, and establishing interoperability across merchants. So having systems where, since these tokens are bearer instruments, you can have order books for them. And so you could theoretically accept any gift card or gift token from any vendor for anything. And because you have an aftermarket of people that can establish the aftermarket price of these things. And so Dunkin' Donuts could accept Starbucks tokens with no problem. They just use an exchange that supports converting them. So these things interest me. Service tokens, like I mentioned, like 1 month of Netflix. It's not a tangible thing. It is a liability, an obligation. These things interest me. So that's why I'd like to add support for pair credit once it's ready. We'd like to add ability to buy Bitcoin. And so we have some plans for how you can basically make an account with an exchange like Bitfinex, but provide a front end that is only for Bitcoin. And so they'll only be able to buy Bitcoin and not be in the trading sense. So just having access to be able to do things like, DCA and, things like, being able to acquire Bitcoin and put it in your savings in the wallet. There's a kind of savings and spending concept in the wallet as well. You'll see when you play with it. And then with slash tags, we want to solve the kind of storage incentive thing we talked about on the lower level, but on the Bitkit level, we want to introduce subscription features, subscriptions and allowances. And this is something that you can actually solve with the underlying tech, that a lot of people want to be able to do this stuff, and we can solve it in really cool ways. And so you'll be able to have like membership subscriptions. You'll be able to allocate what amount of money like a certain subscription service can automatically be paid by you. So say, for example, you have a monthly Netflix subscription, and now Netflix, will ping your wallet and say, hey, your payment is due. And if you have allocated an allowance for that payment, your wallet will just automatically pay it, and you don't have to be interacting with that. So it's a way to kind of create the user experience people are used to today, but they don't have to, they can still hold their own Bitcoin and do it. So subscriptions is a feature we want to add, and we have several other features that we want to add to slash tags and demonstrate as new features. I can see already from the way people are behaving with the profiles that we kind of need to accelerate the ability to do some social features, because people are already saying, like, they're sharing this slash tag on Twitter and they're saying, add me. And it's like, okay, add you and do what? Like, pay you is all you can do right now. They pay you and get updates about your profile. And so now people are going to want to be able to like make posts. And so, but we want to work on social media stuff as well.
Good stuff. Well, I'm super excited. I'm going to go download that as soon as we finish. Is there anything else that we have not gone through during this conversation today that you want to speak about?
I don't know. I've been through so much, and I've been like on a conference tour, and I've been traveling for a while, going to conferences, and I'm a little bit burnt out, to be honest. So I probably am missing some things, but we did kind of cover a lot. You know, we've got Block Tank, which is our LSP service. Oh, we added Block Tank Instant service. So we created this new API for exchanges. So if an exchange wants to add the ability to accept Lightning deposits and Lightning withdrawals, we will just give them an API to do it. And so we'll make a business relationship. They don't have to run Lightning at all. They don't have to have a Lightning engineer. They don't have to know how Lightning works. We just do everything for them. And they, when it's a deposit, we owe them the money. When it's a withdrawal, they owe us the money, and we settle out a ban from the user. And it's just a service for exchanges. So we have a business developer specialized in Block Tank. We have a business developer specialized in slash tags as well. So we're working on integrations with different services. So, you know, I mentioned Starbacker is integrated. We have a couple other, we have Bitfinex is integrating, and we have a couple other people,
Congratulations.
maybe 4 other people working on different integrations of the various slash tags features. You know, we have the Bitkit wallet. Test that. Hopefully it'll be in a non-beta form within a month or two, and that we can call it like fully released, and we'll turn off the throttle on how many people can download it. And we've got slash tags, and so slash tags we plan to start running some hackathons and doing, you know, business development for integrations and adding a lot of new features to slash tags that it can do a lot. And so we're going to demonstrate to people that you can do Web3 without a blockchain. You can do Web5 without a blockchain. And you can do this in a serverless way. You can have a lot of cool asynchronous features. And we're just trying to show people that this is there are very practical, very cool ways that you can just own the data, own the keys, and you don't have to like run nodes and do crazy things to make it possible.
I love it. Well, more power to you. Like I said, super excited to see what you guys come out with next, and can't wait to have you back soon. Last thing I'll ask is, I took the liberty of adding your Twitter handle into your handle on the screen, but can you just tell people how they can find you, how they can find what you're doing with Synonym, and stay up to date on the information?
Sure. You can find me. I'm Bitcoin Error Log on Twitter, same on Telegram. We have channels on Twitter and Telegram for each product now, and websites for each product now. So if you're interested in Bitkit, go to bitkit.to, bitkit.to. If you're interested in Synonym, go to synonym.to. If you're interested in Blocktank, blocktank.to. Slashtags.to. And Slashtag's website is pretty cool, actually, because we've also released like the first version of our Slashtags SDK to make it easier to work with Slashtags. And we have a whole playground in there, which shows a bunch of demo use cases and demo apps for like, you know, showing people trying to expand their creativity, what you can do with this and what kind of UIs you would do to express some of the features of Slashtags.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate having you today. And I'll just remind everybody that if you do not yet have a ticket to Bitcoin 2023, you can get one today using code BMLive to save 10%. You can also purchase a physical magazine, the censorship resistant issue. The Orange Party issue is about to come out. So if you do not already have one of the censorship resistant issues, it's about to become a collector's item. My friends, thanks for joining us. We will see you same time, same place tomorrow. Adios.